Close your eyes and feel the wind howling at -40 degrees. Ice crystals slicing through the air like tiny knives. It's 25,000 years ago, the last glacial maximum, Earth's most ferocious cold snap in human memory. You're standing at the mouth of a cave in what will one day be France, surrounded by a world unrecognizable. Ice sheets 2 miles thick crush Scandinavia to Scotland. Sea levels sit 400 feet lower, and the Sahara blooms with lakes. This is no planet you'd call home. It's an alien wasteland, a frozen hell where survival seems impossible. But here's the kicker. Our ancestors didn't just scrape by in this apocalypse. They conquered it. Welcome to the human wild, where we're about to unravel the greatest survival story never properly told. How Ice Age humans turned a frozen nightmare into humanity's finest hour. Let's step into their world and see how they pulled it off. Picture yourself inside that cave, not shivering in despair but warmed by a fire that crackles with purpose. A child laughs, her giggles echoing as her grandmother flicks her hands against the firelit wall, casting shadow puppets that dance like living stories. Nearby, men sort stone blanks with the focus of modern craftsmen, prepping for tomorrow's toolmaking. Women stitch reindeer hides with sinew thread so fine it'd make a tailor jealous, crafting seams that laugh at the biting wind. The air smells rich with roasting mammoth fat. Not a desperate last meal but a feast for a community that's not just surviving but thriving. Forget the knuckle-dragging cavemen of old cartoons. These were engineers, artists, and survivors who looked at the Ice Age and said, "We've got this." This was no fluke. Around 33,000 years ago, temperatures didn't just drop, they plummeted. The world became a freezer, locked shut for 8,000 years. Scientists call it the last glacial maximum. Our ancestors called it home. While saber-toothed cats froze in their dens and even cold-adapted Neanderthals faded from the earth, Homo sapiens did something extraordinary. We built complex societies. At Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, archaeologists found ceramic figurines, art crafted when survival supposedly demanded every waking moment. In Russia, at Sungur, a man buried 34,000 years ago lies draped in 3,000 mammoth ivory beads, each taking hours to carve. His clothing, pieced together from bead patterns, would have taken 2,500 hours to make. That's not scraping by, that's sophistication. These people wove textiles, built houses from mammoth bones, and crafted tools so precise they rival modern scalpels. This was ingenuity forged in ice. Let's paint the world they navigated. Imagine standing where New York City is today, but instead of skyscrapers, a mile of ice presses down with the weight of mountains. Just miles away, vast grasslands pulse with life. The Ice Age didn't blanket Earth in white. It wove a patchwork of extremes. Siberia, mostly ice-free, stretched as a massive step from Spain to Alaska. The English Channel was a grassy plain where humans hunted horses. The Grand Banks off Newfoundland? Prime real estate for mammoth herds. Sea levels dropped so low that continents rose. Indonesia fused to Asia. Britain joined Europe. Japan bridged to Korea. And then there's Beringia, a lost world twice the size of Texas, linking Asia to America. This wasn't a narrow bridge people scurried across. It was a homeland where humans lived for millennia, their unique genetic markers in Native Americans proving they thrived there, not just passed through. This world was a paradox, brutal yet bountiful. The Mammoth Steppe, an ecosystem gone forever, supported 10 times the animal biomass of modern African savannas. A single square mile could feed mammoths, woolly rhinos, horses, bison, and predators like wolves with bone-crushing jaws. Clear skies brought 24-hour daylight in summer, and winters, though harsh, were dry. Siberia saw less snow than Chicago does today. At Yana River in Siberia, 32,000 years ago, humans built a permanent settlement 500 miles above the Arctic Circle. Not a camp, but a town with hundreds of artifacts. They didn't just survive the Arctic. They chose it. Trade routes stretched from Scotland to Siberia, carrying ideas, genes, and innovations across continents, binding humanity in a web of resilience. Survival meant outsmarting the cold, And they did it with genius. Picture a woman by the Black Sea, 45,000 years ago, holding a sliver of bird bone no bigger than a matchstick. She's polished it for hours, carving a tiny hole at one end. This is the eyed needle, humanity's game changer. Before this, rough hides were all they had, fine in mild weather, deadly in -40. Wind slipped through gaps, snow crept into seams, and body heat vanished. Hypothermia could kill in an hour. But with that needle, she threads sinew so fine it's nearly invisible, stitching reindeer hides into waterproof seams. What emerges isn't just clothing, it's engineering. Dr. Ian Gilligan from the University of Sydney puts it bluntly. Without the needle, humans couldn't have survived north of the 45th parallel, half the inhabited world today. These needles were specialized. At Denisova Cave in Siberia, 50,000-year-old needles came from mammoth ivory for heavy parkas, swan bones for mid-layers, rabbit bones for delicate work. At La Prele in Wyoming, 32 needle fragments from 13 animals. Foxes, hares, even an extinct American cheetah show haute couture, Ice Age style. A man at Sungar, buried 28,000 years ago, wore a tunic, leggings, cape, boots and hat, adorned with 3,000 beads. That outfit took a year to craft. Modern Inuit parkas use the same layering, moisture-wicking inner layers insulating fur, windproof shells. The difference? They used bird skins and wolf pelts. We used synthetics. Those needles opened continents. Clothing was just the start. Step into a mammoth bone house at Mezhyrich, Ukraine, 15,000 years ago. A farmer's shovel hits a massive jawbone, and archaeologists uncover 4 structures built from 149 mammoths. These aren't crude shelters, they're architectural marvels. The main house, 16 feet across, uses 100-pound mammoth skulls as a foundation, interlocked with jawbones. Walls of shoulder blades and pelvises stack like shingles. Long bones form arches. Tusks anchor it all. Dr. Olga Soffer calculated it took precise math and dozens of workers to move 20 tons of bone, scavenged miles away, sorted for specific roles. Skulls for stability, femurs for rafters. These homes were 40 degrees warmer than outside. At Kostensky, a 25,000-year-old structure, possibly a community center, used bones from 60 mammoths. These were statements. We conquered the mammoth so completely, we live inside its bones. Fire was another triumph. At Kostenki 9 in Ukraine 23,000 years ago, 3 hearths burn at 600 degrees Celsius, each with a purpose. Communal warmth, tool-making, crafts. Wood was scarce, so they burned bones, using prehistoric bellows to hit 650 degrees Celsius. Fat lamps, hollowed stones with seal blubber and moss wicks, gave smokeless light for days. Ceramic heating elements stored warmth long after fires died. Dr. Vera Auld suggests they needed less fire because their homes and clothing were so efficient. Body heat in mammoth bone houses became a survival tool. Hot stone cooking boiled water in hide-lined pits, maximizing calories without smoke. Children learned fire-making before walking, their tiny flint kits buried with them. Fire wasn't just warmth, it was community. The hearth, a social network where stories wove people together. The story doesn't end with fire. These humans were about to face a world where survival demanded more than warm clothes and clever houses. Their ingenuity would be tested by the very beasts they hunted and the land they called home. You're standing on the mammoth steppe now, 24,000 years ago, heart pounding as a 9-ton mammoth charges across the frozen ground. Hollywood would have you believe fur-clad hunters hurl spears and chase it off a cliff. Pure fantasy. A human-thrown spear can't pierce a mammoth's 4-inch hide and fat to reach vital organs. Physics says no. Instead, these hunters were brilliant. UC Berkeley's Dr. Scott Byram revealed Clovis points. Those iconic Stone Age weapons weren't throwing spears but pikes, planted at precise angles in narrow valleys. The hunters baited the mammoth, its own momentum driving the pike deep. It was Aikido with extinction-level stakes. These pikes were masterpieces. Clovis points were hafted to split wooden shafts, bound with sinew, reinforced with pine pitch, their bases ground to withstand massive impacts. Some show fractures only a charging megabeast could cause. But hunting wasn't just about mammoths. At Skaaningen, Germany, 400,000-year-old wooden spears, thickest at the front like modern javelins, could be thrown 70 meters with deadly accuracy. By 30,000 years ago, atlatls, spear throwers, multiplied force by 400%, piercing elephant hide at 40 meters. By 20,000 years ago, bows emerged with specialized arrows. Broad points for reindeer, narrow for mammoths, barbed for fish, blunt for birds. At La Prairie in Wyoming, points were sharper in winter for thick hides. Their real weapon? Endurance. Humans outlasted prey, tracking wounded animals for days. Using psychology, knowing reindeer moved into the wind, mammoths protected calves, horses spooked at sounds. But mammoths weren't the backbone of survival. Reindeer were. At Krems Wachtberg in Austria, 90% of 24,000-year-old bones are reindeer, hunted in winter when their fur 1 square inch packed with hollow hairs, was nature's best insulation. Isotope analysis shows these hunters ate reindeer consistently, their teeth worn from fine pelts. They hit migration routes with precision, returning for 12,000 years, as seen at Pinsevent in France. Their 62-eyed needles, from thick to ultra-fine, crafted fitted parkas, mittens, and multi-layered boots. A textile factory in a frozen world. Food wasn't just meat. Dental plaque from Dalny vestinus, 30,000 years old, shows starch from 140 plants, cattail roots, hawthorn berries, wild carrots, grinding stones, some 50 pounds, bare polish from thousands of hours processing seeds and roots. Dr. Karen Hardy found cooked starches, unlocking brain-fueling glucose. At Shanidar Cave, Neanderthal teeth reveal medicinal plants, chamomile, yarrow, showing pharmaceutical knowledge. This was botanical mastery, with grandmothers as living libraries, knowing which roots were edible, which berries could be dried, where to dig under snow. The ocean was a lifeline too. At Kosker Cave, now 120 feet underwater, 20,000-year-old art depicts seals and fish. At Quilla de Iria in Spain, 80% of fish bones are from spring spawns, showing seasonal expertise. Bone fish hooks, toggle harpoons, and standardized net weights reveal a fishing industry, with marine proteins making up 50% of coastal diets. In Japan, 9,000-year-old tuna bones suggest deep-water boats. At Daisy Cave in California, 13,000-year-old shellfish hooks prove maritime mastery, buffering inland feast or famine cycles with steady nutrition. Survival wasn't solo, it was communal. Bands of 25 to 30 people shared everything. At Pinsevent, reindeer meat spread evenly across hearths. Leadership shifted. Best tracker for hunts, best seamstress for clothing. Conflict was resolved without violence. Mockery, storytelling, or band splits. At Shanidar Cave, a disabled Neanderthal lived years, cared for. At Cap's Cave, a child with severe disabilities was buried with care 100,000 years ago. Grandmothers were key, their knowledge of plants and navigation boosting child survival by 50%. The Sunger, an elderly woman cared for unrelated children, a uniquely human trait. These bands were networked. At Dalny vestinus, 30,000-year-old shell beads traveled 500 kilometers. Not trade but engagement rings. Strontium isotopes at Sunger show young adults moved 200 kilometers for marriage. Aggregation sites like Pinsevent hosted 300 people, fostering mate exchanges and innovation. Jewelry, shells, amber, tooth pendants was identity like a prehistoric profile. These networks spread tools, knowledge, and peace. Art and music were survival tools. Chauvet Cave's 36,000-year-old paintings show seasonal guides. Deer with September antlers, pregnant mares in spring. Predators in hard-to-reach spots taught vigilance. At Hole Fells, 43,000-year-old flutes used swan bones for perfect acoustics. At Ischritz, 20 standardized flutes show mass production. Dr. Danielle Levitin says music synchronized groups, boosted memory, and encoded navigation like Aboriginal songlines. The ground is shifting now, and the world these humans mastered is about to unravel, testing their genius in ways they never imagined. You're standing on a changing Earth, 15,000 years ago, where the tundra you've hunted for generations is sprouting trees. Reindeer vanish, replaced by deer hiding in forests. Dr. Conrad Hughes' ice core data shows temperatures soared 10 degrees Celsius in 50 years. New York turning into Miami in a lifetime. For Ice Age hunters, this warmth was a catastrophe. At Starcar in England, 11,000 years ago, hunters built wooden platforms over new wetlands, crafted forest hunting tools, and wore deer skull headdresses, perhaps to make sense of their shifting world. Dr. Nikki Milner's isotope analysis shows diets pivoted to fish, pike, and perch, replacing diverse herds and plants. This wasn't just ecological upheaval. It was social. Band society, honed over millennia, began to fracture. At Lepensky Vir on the Danube, permanent settlements, houses with foundations, and hierarchical burials signal the end of egalitarianism. Dr. Brian Hayden calls this the end of the original affluent society. Hunter-gatherers worked 20 hours a week. Early farmers toiled 40 to 60. Health declined, teeth rotted, heights shrank, but populations exploded. Why? Demographic trap theory. As climate warmed, territories filled. There was nowhere left to roam. At Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, 11,500-year-old stone circles carved with dying Ice Age animals mark a last stand. Not temples but monuments to a vanishing way of life. Then came the Younger Dryas 12,900 years ago, a brutal cold snap dropping temperatures 15 degrees Celsius in 3 years. Los Angeles turning into Antarctica before a child could walk. Dr. Wallace Broecker likened it to a climate system heart attack, triggered by Lake Agassiz's freshwater flood crashing ocean currents. In North America, the Clovis culture vanished, their spear points buried under a black mat layer. But elsewhere, humans pivoted. In the Levant, Natufians, facing scarce grains, planted rye, the birth of agriculture. Dr. Gordon Hillman found worn teeth and cultivated seeds at Abu Huraira, proof of a desperate revolution. In Europe, populations shifted east, following herds, while bows, pottery, and food storage emerged. When warmth returned, 10 degrees Celsius in 50 years, humans were transformed: farmers, potters, architects. But it came at a cost. Dr. Amanda Henry's data shows Ice Age hunter-gatherers had cavity-free teeth and stood tall. 5 feet 10 inches for men, 5 feet 5 inches for women. Agricultural teeth had 10 to 85% cavities. Heights dropped to 5 feet 7 inches and 5 feet 2 inches. Dr. Herman Ponser says their bodies were Ferraris, perfectly efficient, burning the same calories as modern office workers. Our minivan bodies struggle with abundance. Dr. Sebastian Junger notes we lost community. Bands were 24/7 support groups. Dr. Jerome Siegel says their 6.5-hour sleep, with nightly bonding, was rewired by industrial life. Yet civilization brought gains. Doubled lifespans, lower child mortality, accumulated knowledge. Dr. Daniel Lieberman calls us mismatched, Stone Age bodies in a Space Age world. Our cravings for fat and sugar, adaptive then, kill now. But we're rediscovering their wisdom. Paleo diets, co-sleeping, forest bathing echo their efficiency. Their wealth was real. At Sungur, a man's 25,000 beads took 3 years. At Dolny Vestinis, a disabled teenager's burial was adorned with ochre and pendants. Dr. Olga Soffer found woven textiles, complex weaves, not crude hides. Dr. Svante Pabo's DNA shows stable populations, no inbreeding. Their 100-plus tool types, Renaissance-like art, and buried pets at Predmosty show dignity, not desperation. Their world wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving through connection, ingenuity, and something deeper that carried them through the ice. You're on Beringia now, a lost world twice the size of Texas, stretching from Siberia to Alaska, 25,000 years ago. This wasn't a bridge people crossed, it was home. Dr. John Hoffaker calls it the center of the Ice Age world. Genetic evidence shows humans lived here for millennia, thriving in a mammoth steppe with bison, horses, and Arctic willows, like modern Mongolia. They developed unique tools and clothing, waiting 5,000 years for ice sheets to melt. When they did 500 years ago, their descendants colonized the Americas in 2,000 years, one of history's fastest expansions. Love was their secret weapon. At Dolny Vestinus, 30,000-year-old shell beads traveled 500 kilometers. Not trade, but engagement rings. Dr. Connie Mulligan's genetic work shows mate exchange networks spanning thousands of kilometers. Strontium isotopes at Sunger reveal young adults moved 200 kilometers for marriage. Aggregation sites like Pinsevent hosted 300 people during reindeer migrations, a prehistoric speed dating hub. Jewelry, shells, amber, tooth pendants was identity like a social profile. These networks prevented inbreeding, spread innovations, and built alliances. Exar Akil in Lebanon, a 40,000-year-old fox tooth pendant, worn with red pigment, might be history's first love token. Dr. Clive Gamble says these objects carried memories and relationships, binding distant bands. The megafauna's end reshaped everything. Dr. Paul Martin's Blitzkrieg hypothesis blamed humans. Megafauna vanished after our arrival in Australia 46,000 years ago, the Americas 13,000 years ago, and Madagascar 2,000 years ago. Dr. Russell Graham argued the Younger Dryas climate swings killed their habitats. Dr. Matt Lawton's 2021 DNA study says both were right. Climate fragmented populations, humans finished them. At Predmasti, hunters targeted young male mammoths, like modern poachers. In Brazil, 12,600-year-old sloth bones bear human cut marks. Saber-toothed cats turned to cannibalism as prey vanished. Dr. Jacqueline Gill's dung fungus studies show megafauna declined before major climate shifts. Humans were the trigger. This loss transformed ecosystems. Without megafauna grazing, the mammoth steppe became tundra. Fruit trees struggled without seed dispersers. Humans, now without big game, innovated. At Abu Huraira, agriculture emerged. In Europe, populations shifted east, bows and pottery appeared, and settlements rose. The Younger Dryas forced a reinvention. Hunter-gatherers became farmers, laying civilization's roots. Their society was wealth, not hardship. Dr. Randall White says Sunger's bead-adorned burials show surplus.
Dr. Olga Soferes, venue figurine Reveal woven textile.
Dr. Oksana Garcia-Rodriguez 2024 research shows people moved between them, sharing genes and tools. When ice retreated, these groups spread, shaping Europe's diversity. Trade was global. At Zokov Island, 8,000 years ago, obsidian traveled 2,000 kilometers via dog sleds through relay points. Dr. Vladimir Patulko calls these sleds commerce engines, hauling volcanic glass sharper than surgical steel. This Ice Age Silk Road connected the Pacific to the Arctic, surviving the Younger Dryas. Art was survival. Dr. April Noel says Chauvet's paintings were seasonal guides, predators in hard-to-reach spots teaching vigilance. Dr. David Lewis Williams calls caves the first information technology. Music from Whole Fells flutes, 43,000 years old, was social glue and proto-language, encoding navigation like Aboriginal songlines. As the ice melted, their world ended, but their legacy asks, what will we become in our own changing world? You're at the edge of a forest, 15,000 years ago, where an old hunter stands, bewildered. The tundra is gone, trees rise, reindeer vanish, replaced by deer hiding in woods. Dr. Conrad Hughes' ice cores show a 10 degrees Celsius rise in 50 years, a climate shift that made Ice Age skills obsolete. At Starcar, hunters built platforms, crafted forest tools, ate fish. Society fractured. At Lepensky Vir, permanent settlements and hierarchical burials mark the end of egalitarianism. Farmers worked twice as hard, health faltered, but population soared, no room left to roam. The Younger Dryas, 12,900 years ago, dropped temperatures 15 degrees Celsius in 3 years. Clovis hunters vanished, but Natufians planted rye, birthing agriculture. Eastern Europeans followed herds, inventing bows and pottery. When warmth returned, humans were farmers, not hunters. Dr. Daniel Lieberman says we're mismatched, Stone Age bodies craving scarcity, not abundance. Dr. Sebastian Junger notes we lost community. Dr. Jerome Siegel says our sleep lost intimacy. Civilization doubled lifespans, lowered child mortality, but brought obesity, depression, isolation. Their wealth wasn't myth. Sunger's beads, Dalny Vestinus burials, Soffer's textiles, Pabo's DNA show surplus and resilience. They buried dogs, carved swans, wove networks. Refugia birthed diversity. Trade carried obsidian 2,000 kilometers. Art and music encoded survival. As our climate shifts, their lesson is adaptation. We're their heirs, blending their wisdom with our tools. The ice melted and civilization grew. As our world melts, what will we grow? This is the human wild, and their story lives in us. Cooperation, ingenuity, love. What do you think their greatest lesson is for us today? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and join us to uncover more stories of humanity's wild past. Until next time, keep exploring the wild within.